Stay tuned. Coming up, it's a flashback to episode 344 in my interview with Ricky Mehaffey from the Waynesville, North Carolina Fire Department as he chronicles his near-miss survival story where 3 firefighters almost died at a routine chimney fire. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire. Every day, the hard-working men and women at Midwest Fire build the most reliable firefighting apparatus to be found anywhere. Their customers know a well-built fire engine means lives and property saved. Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer dedicated to helping you extinguish fire before it becomes a raging beast. To learn more about what fuels their passion, visit MidwestFire.com. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 344. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Let me pause here on the front end and acknowledge that I may sound a little short of breath for today's episode. I developed a cough and a wheeze about 2 weeks ago, had 2 negative COVID tests, but a chest x-ray revealed that I had pneumonia. So I apologize if I sound a little winded, and I'll do my best to edit it out if I cough. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gassaway Virtual Training. We have 33 online training programs for your members. Some of these programs are live events presented virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. All right, let's jump into our feature segment, a flashback to episode 142 in my interview with Ricky Mehaffey from the Waynesville, North Carolina Fire Department as he chronicles his near-miss survival story where 3 firefighters almost died at a routine chimney fire. One note, this episode was initially recorded before I was doing video recorded episodes, so this interview is audio only.
It was early morning. We come on at 7, and it was a little after 8, and I was actually talking with my assistant chief, and he had just left, and the tones dropped for a residential structure fire. In Waynesville, we are a combination department. At the time, we had 2 paid staff on duty, and then we depend on about 30 volunteers. But as everyone knows, that volunteers, as great as they are, and we have some of the best, that during the day, most of them are at work. So right out the door, you know, my mind starts thinking of staffing issues and not having enough people on scene. Mm-hmm. So I get in my engine. I'm the engineer, only guy on the truck, and I'm responding.
What did dispatch tell you were going to?
At the time of dispatch, that's all they said was a residential structure fire. They were waiting further information.
Okay.
Said they had 1 caller and it was light smoke showing. While I was en route, they updated me with more information. They had got a call from the homeowner who stated that there was a fire. It looked like it was in the attic area, and that he was seeing flames from the inside of the house. Okay. So the call was roughly about a mile and a half from my station, so I got on scene relatively quickly. My second engine, however, was about 5 miles away, so it took him a little bit longer to get there.
Is that 2 more people?
No, just 1 more.
1 more. Okay.
We have 1 on. At the time, we had 1 on each truck.
Okay. So were you alone on the truck you were on?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. You said 2 paid staff. I was thinking they were both on the same truck. It's 1 on each apparatus.
Yeah, 1 at each station.
Okay.
So as I turned up the road it was on was more like a small driveway, and then as you went up the road, it split, and there was a trailer to the right, and then the house that the actual call was at is to the left, And this was, as I pulled in, I seen the house as a 2-story wood frame structure. Had a big wraparound porch in the front with a big carport type open garage in the back. And on my side, which would have been the A side of the structure, that's when I seen this massive chimney. I mean, it was just, when I say massive, it was a huge chimney, probably 4 foot in width, and it 6 to 8 feet that it stood over the eave of the house. So a 2-story house, and then you add that much more of a chimney over the gutter line.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a rock face chimney was all I could tell from the outside. And as I pulled up, I seen there was smoke coming from the eaves on the A side of the structure where the chimney's at, and I seen some smoke coming from the chimney itself, but there was no visible flames at that time. And I made note of the chimney, the size of the chimney, and made sure to park my apparatus outside of that collapse zone.
Mm-hmm.
I seen that, and being an engineer, that's I made note of that and made sure that I put my truck where it would not be in any danger of that chimney if it fell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got out, I done my 360, made my scene size up, advised everybody what we had, and by this time, my second truck was getting on scene. My assistant chief had arrived on scene, and he was taking over the command function as far as the radio and stuff, and I was more in an operations mode at this time.
Now, hold on a second. Do you have any other help coming?
I had one mutual aid department coming.
Is that automatic aid, or did you call?
Automatic aid. No, that's automatic aid, and they're a volunteer department.
Okay.
To the west of us.
Okay. Because you guys are in a tight spot right now, working fire with 3 people.
Yeah, 3 people. I did get 2 volunteers that showed up relatively quickly.
Did they go right to the scene?
Yeah, they come right to the scene.
Okay.
And so that was help. And then I've got, like I said, I had my other truck coming, which he just parked. He parked behind me, and in the event that I needed anything from his truck, water, whatever, then I would take care of that as the engineer of my truck. I would take care of that, and he goes right to fighting fire.
Okay.
So, and that's what he did. He geared up and got one of the volunteers that had showed up, and they made their way in the house. And as the mutual aid company was pulling in, and
how many were on that truck?
There was 3 on that truck, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
They're good help when they get there. They usually have a truck full.
Okay.
And you can pretty much guarantee that.
Mm-hmm.
So, they went to work. He went inside, advised what we had. When you went in the house, it was a 2-story house, but as you walked in and into the house, the living room area and kitchen area was a vaulted ceiling. And then on the B side of the structure, that was actually a 2-story house. That's where they had bedrooms upstairs. But on the D side of the house, that was vaulted ceiling. It was all open. That's where the big fireplace was on the inside. And once they got inside, they advised that they had no visible flames inside, but they did have smoke. And by this time, there was some flames starting to show around the chimney, around the eave of the house, and around the chimney on the outside. So they went investigating more. They went upstairs and they found the attic access. And once they got in the attic on the 2-story side of the house, they could see towards the vaulted ceiling side, and they could tell that the fire was running up inside that vaulted ceiling. And it looked like it had originated somewhere near the chimney. That's what it looked like to them. So they commenced to tearing out and trying to attack the fire, and advising us what they had and what they were doing. And of course, we were on the outside looking. There wasn't really much we could do with them being in there, and just kind of keeping them aware of what was going on while they dug deeper and deeper, trying to figure out how to attack this fire. And they had requested I can't remember what it was. It was probably a New York hook or a pike pole, or another one, because I knew they took one in with them when they went in. So that's what I did. I got the pike pole off the truck, and let me say this: where this chimney was, this is another epic fail on my part. Where this chimney was, the majority of the people that had showed up to help, the mutual aid companies and the volunteers, they were pretty much gathering within a 15 or 20 foot radius of this chimney. The collapse zone that I noticed when I pulled up, as soon as my feet hit the ground, that left me. I was worried about this thing falling on my truck, but once I got into operations mode and fireground mode, that chimney totally left my mind. Even though I was looking at it, watching the smoke and the fire, along with my assistant chief, the fact that I thought that chimney might fall when I first pulled up, that thought had totally left me.
Why do you think that is?
I'm going to say tunnel vision, or just worried more about getting the fire put out and saving these people's house than I guess my safety or my crew's safety.
So you have all these people gathered around that chimney, the same chimney you had staged your apparatus to stay out of the collapse zone, and as they're all standing around near the chimney, you're not even thinking about that at that time?
No, sir. Never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind to the point where we actually, they're on the front side of the house, there's a wraparound porch, and the steps to go up onto this porch came down to the bottom of where this chimney was. And we actually had put a ladder up to be able to ladder that porch in case we needed to get on the roof. So there was actually a ladder at the base of this chimney going up on that wraparound front porch. So, with that being said, though, they asked for a tool. I believe it was a New York hook. So I took it around to the back door, dropped it off to them, was walking back, and as I was walking back, I was walking right in the line of where this chimney would fall. And there was, it was either 2 or 3, I can't remember, guys from our mutual aid department that had stopped me. They had asked me a question. I don't recall what that question was, but we were talking. I'm sure it was something about the operations and what was going on. And while we were talking, I heard somebody holler, and they screamed that the chimney was falling. And I heard it. One of the guys that I was talking with heard it because he took off immediately and took off running. The other gentleman that I was there with, he did not hear it. And as I heard it, I kind of pushed him and we took off running, told him we need to run. And as I looked back, you could see the chimney falling. Of course, I don't even remember who it was that seen the chimney falling first and hollered, but when he did that, of course, people just started scrambling, because there was quite a few people that was close to the chimney. Myself and the two from the mutual aid department, we were the closest. And so we took off, and I pushed the guy, and of course, he didn't buck me. He seen everybody else moving, and I guess he realized we needed to run, and we took off, and I was running in the direction of my engine, and was running out of room, and when the chimney fell, it was a thunder. I mean, it was such a large chimney. When it fell, my interior guys actually came out of the house because they felt it inside and didn't know what happened. They thought something had happened on the outside, and they were coming out to see what that was before they continued their operations. So as this chimney fell, we're running away, and I felt it hit the ground. I felt the thump. Yeah. And as I looked back, there was 2 or 3 large rocks that was actually chasing us. That's, and I mean, they were right there behind us. And as I turned back to continue watching where I was running, I was actually I was waiting to feel them take out my legs.
Now, when you say large rocks, are you talking like bowling ball size?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this large, almost like creek rock. Mm-hmm. And of course, as I got to my engine, I was running out of room to run, and I looked back and they had stopped. The rocks had stopped. The chimney was down. They were roughly the 2 or 3 that were, I'll say, were chasing me, were roughly 3 to 5 feet behind me. That's where they had stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So they were that close. The ladder that was over on the porch, it was destroyed. And of course, we were all just amazed, and initially we all ran over to the chimney because we weren't sure that everybody had ran away. So we just kind of, myself and my assistant chief, we went over there just to kind of double check and look around just to be sure that, because we all went into that self-survival mode, so to speak, and just kind of scattered. And so we weren't 100% sure when it fell that there wasn't somebody under it.
Now, in the path where it landed, is that right where you guys were standing? Had you not moved, would it have hit you?
Yes, sir. If we had not moved, there would have been 3 line-of-duty deaths that day. There's not a doubt in my mind, because we were right in the path of it, and we were within 15 feet of the house, and maybe even a little closer. But so we were within 15 feet of the house, and we're talking about a chimney that was over 20 feet tall.
Now, the ladder that you said was destroyed, at any time during this incident, had anybody been up or down that ladder?
No. It was put up, but it was only put up for if we needed to access the roof. And I think once we realized that it was a vaulted ceiling, and it was on that side, then the ladder position it was in a bad place anyway. So it was never used, but it was never removed either.
So describe for me kind of what the scene was like and the discussions were like as you walked over to see, is there anybody in this rubble?
There wasn't a whole lot of discussion. It was, I remember my assistant chief looking at me, and he just had that look on his face, and I'm sure I did as well. What just happened? Because again, I go back to when I pulled up to when I got out of the truck. My mind totally left that chimney, and my mind totally left that call after it happened, really, until I came to Durham and listened to you. And when you ask when you ask if anybody had a close call they want to talk about, that's the first thing that went through my mind. And I wasn't quite ready to talk about it then.
Yeah.
But so I think that was the one that got me the most that day. And I'm sure my assistant chief too. He never said it, but how did we miss that? He's got almost 30 years of experience now, fixing to retire. I've got 15, and there was plenty of other guys on that scene. And how did we all miss it?
Yeah.
And what would the rest of that day and many days after that been like if we had got killed that day? If all because, and it's tunnel vision. It's worrying about something else when there's a immediate danger right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. And you had already given thought to the idea that chimney might fall when you were staging your apparatus.
Yes, that's, and I think that's where some of our issues are is, with engineers and those programs we beat it like a dead horse, that we have to be careful where we're parking our apparatus. We have to make sure our apparatus are parked at the right angles. Apparatus positioning is a big subject.
Mm-hmm.
Situational awareness is not. If you take that same scenario and you put it in a fire academy for a rookie fireman, there's hardly any mention of it.
Right. Right.
So that had been beat into my head as an engineer. But once I come out of that truck and was on the ground and was, kind of in operations mode, situational awareness had not been beat into my head. So that hazard, that was a hazard for my engine, left my mind because it wasn't a hazard in my mind for me as a fireman or the other people on the fireground.
That's a really interesting observation, is that you would consider that chimney a hazard for the engine and the well-being of the engine, but you would not think of it as a hazard for your own well-being. And that really makes the situational awareness tie-in lesson from the class that you attended, right?
Yes, that's where like I said, I probably haven't given 3 thoughts to that call since then until I came to Durham and listened to you. And from the time I left there, it was on my mind. The other 3 captains that came with me down there, we talked about it on the way home. And then that's when I got home, I decided I was going to email you, and just tell you what an eye-opening experience it was, because it was, and it has changed my whole outlook on the way that I run calls, the way that I look at situations, and not just fire situations, wreck situations. It's opened my eyes to a different way of seeing things.
Perfect. That's the perfect testimonial as to what I'm trying to accomplish in that class, is give people a different way of looking at things. What'd you guys learn from this? If you were to give some advice to people, what would your advice sound like?
Well, my first piece of advice would be to attend one of your seminars.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm so passionate about it now that my shift, which there's only 3 of us, I'm fixing to be 4, but I signed my whole shift up for your academy.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Because, it ain't just me, especially, with us, there's only 3 of us, so there's a good possibility that I won't be there, if we have multiple calls. And I want all my guys to change their way of thinking.
Right. Well, arguably, you could say
life.
Everybody on the scene of that call had the same kind of block in their thinking that day, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. I don't think any of them had I don't know if any of them seen it like I did when I pulled up, but yeah, it was right there in front of us the whole time. It wasn't like it was hid off on the sea side of the structure where we couldn't see it. It was right in front of my engine where we were running the call.
Now, when you all got back from that call, did you guys do any kind of a discussion or a debrief or a, wow, that was close? What did we learn from this?
It was one of those. It was a wow. We could have got killed today. And then it was thank goodness we didn't, and we move on. It's what we do as firemen, and it's a good trait some days, and it's a bad other situations like this one. We get the bad calls, we see the bad stuff, and we're able to put it out of sight, out of mind, and move on. And but then there's situations like this where we don't need to put it out of sight, out of mind. We need to bring it up to the front. We need to talk about it, and we need to figure out what we got to do to keep it from happening again.
Now, there's one question that I often ask of people who've had these near-miss events. At the end of your shift, you went home, and we didn't talk about, family that you have or anything, but apparently I would guess that somewhere there's people somewhere in that area who care about you.
Oh, yes. I got 4 kids.
Okay. Did you tell them?
I don't think I did. I don't believe I did, because whenever I was talking to my wife about doing this podcast, she didn't remember me telling her about the call. She didn't recollect me coming home and saying, "Hey, I about died yesterday." So I don't.
Well, hold on a second. She didn't recollect you telling her because you didn't tell her.
Exactly.
Because if you'd have told her, she would have remembered that conversation, right?
Yeah, yes. There's not much she forgets.
Well, especially one with that potential consequence. So then you told her you're going to do this podcast, and she's like, podcast? What's that all about? What are you going to talk about on a podcast? Then you had to tell her?
Yes, that's pretty much. Well, I think what I said was I was going to do the podcast about a near miss, and she said, "Well, when did you have a near miss?" So, and the conversation went from there.
Mm-hmm. And how that settled for her?
Oh, not too good. She wasn't too happy about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, partially, probably wasn't happy that it happened, but then probably wasn't happy that you never mentioned it, right?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because anytime now my wife is a volunteer at my paid department.
Mm.
So anytime that I do anything that she deems unsafe, I can assure you I hear about it. So yeah, she was not too happy to hear about this.
So you had to have that kind of tough conversation a couple years afterwards.
Yes,
yeah.
And I wouldn't say a tough conversation. My wife, she works full time for the ambulance service in the county, so she understands what I do, and I understand what she does, which makes our relationship a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
For situations like this. So it's a good discussion, but again, she wasn't happy about the fact that it happened, and she wasn't happy about the fact that I never told her.
Yeah. Well, I think what makes the conversation tough is that you're having a conversation with someone who's, your life mate, and you're talking essentially about your mortality and how close you came to leaving her a widow and leaving your kids orphans. That's a tough conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. It sure is. And for me, the tough part for me that day is there was those people there they depended on me to, yes, my assistant chief was there, but it's my responsibility to keep them safe. And there would have been three of us. It wouldn't have just been myself. There would have been three of us that day that wouldn't have went home. At least three, maybe more, but at least three that would have went. That wouldn't have went home that day. Their kids wouldn't have had a dad. Their wives wouldn't have had a husband. Their moms and dads wouldn't have had a son. And that's one thing that really after listening to you and Durham, that really set in on me. These guys, even my mutual aid departments, they depend on me to be able to see stuff like that, because that's the position I'm in, and it's my responsibility to do that, and it's my responsibility to educate myself to become more aware of the situation.
How old were your kids at that time?
Let's see, my son was roughly 2 years ago, so he was 14. I had a 9-year-old daughter at the time, a 7-year-old daughter, and a 5-year-old daughter at the time.
Wow. Oh, wow. That kind of chokes me up.
And, so.
Wow. So, I assume you look at things differently now?
Oh, yes. Yes. 100% turnaround. It's a 360 I've done, and the way that I look, at every situation. We've, not because of this situation or even because of this podcast, but one of our volunteer lieutenants, he has started, we've had a couple line of duty deaths in Waynesville. And in the past, one was a heart attack, and then another one was a gas tanker explosion years ago. And so we've started looking into some of those because, it's our job to learn so that things like this don't repeat themselves. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I listen to your podcast. You know, that's why I'm doing the Situational Awareness Academy. Because it's our job to learn. You know, if we don't learn from what's happened to others, then they have truly died in vain.
No kidding. So yeah, and that's one of the things that's one of the things I say in the class is that we owe it to the fallen to learn from how it happened. They died so we could learn something.
Yes, we have to be students of, I don't want to say their mistakes, but of their situations.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not a matter of pointing blame. It's just a matter of saying what happened and what can we learn from it so we don't fall in the same hole to the same outcome.
That's exactly right.
Well, Ricky, thank you so much for coming on and giving the listeners the gift of your time, the gift of your experience. It can be hard to come on and say, I could have done better. I owed it to those firefighters to be more aware of the things that were happening and that I learned something from this. But the important thing is, one, you learned, and now you're sharing it. Now you're giving a gift to the firefighting community to say, learn from this. I almost fell in the hole, but I didn't. And now I have a story that I want you to know about. That's so powerful. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and the platform that you're putting out there for people like myself to be able to share these stories so that hopefully it'll save somebody's life. And some of the stories that I've listened to from you, hopefully that helps save my life and some of my guys' life.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you're doing and your cause, because it is a very, very good cause, because like I said, situational awareness is not at the forefront of firefighting training.
Yeah, for sure.
And it needs to be, and I think it'll get there, and that's a big part to you, and for that I thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you to my guest, Ricky Mehaffey, for sharing your near-miss experience with our listeners and viewers. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-stress, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and survival and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present programs on the virtual platform to groups ranging in size from 6 to 400. Recently, I had the honor of delivering live virtual programs to the Red Deer Emergency Services in Alberta, Canada, and for the University of Maryland's EMS degree program students. It seems like we might be making the turn and returning to live events. I had a live event scheduled that I ended up having to postpone because of the pneumonia. I was supposed to be in Clark County, Fire District number 6 in Washington, presenting fireground situational awareness this past week, but we're going to have to get that one rescheduled. I couldn't fly with my pneumonia. But coming up on November 17 to 19, I'll be in Anchorage, Alaska, presenting to the Anchorage Fire Department 2 programs for the firefighters and 1 program for their telecommunications professionals. On November 24th, I'll be doing a situational awareness and thermal imaging virtual event with Andy Starnes from Insight Training. On December 8th, I'll be at the La Crosse Fire Department in La Crosse, Wisconsin, doing a program called The Leaders Toolbox, Building Tomorrow's Leaders Today. Thank you to the organizations that have allowed me to offer your members virtual training, and a special thanks to those organizations that are now hosting live events. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live event, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I will give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter, how to follow us on social media, And there we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 344 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Ricky Mehaffey. Thank you to our amazing platinum sponsor for almost 7 years now, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, Gasaway Virtual Training, and thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.